If you like $9 Mondays, you will love our Rest of 2022 special currently running at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo. Bet right alongside the handicapper of your choice through the rest of the calendar year for less than $7 per day as we head down the stretch of 2022 with 14 weeks of NFL and college football, MLB through the World Series, over 11 weeks of NHL, over 10 weeks of NBA, and over 7 weeks of college basketball. Plus any soccer, golf, MMA, or other sports your go-to handicapper releases. Lock in the 3 biggest months of betting action for only $7 per day through Sunday, October 2nd, 2022.
Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Distance. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, joined with Kyle Anthony from WagerTalk.com. Matt Kowalis from SportsMemo.com. Here to break down UFC Fight Night, Mackenzie Dern versus Xiaonan. Gentlemen, we had a little break. Nice chance to reset and get right back after. Got a very bettable card. We're going to be going over tons of fights. But before we predict the future, we have to look back at the past and find out what we learned. But real quick, go over what we all have up on our respective websites. Kyle, you got a 4% pack plus a customer appreciation bonus play. For $1, you can get Kyle's 3% play, only $1, celebrating an amazing 365 days. So grab that at WagerTalk.com. Matt's got his UFC best bet up at SportsMemo.com. I've got a 5% play up at WagerTalk.com. So grab those plays. And gentlemen, let's go to the classroom. We got to find out what we learned from the last fight, help us in the future and some of our future bets. So Kyle, coming to you first, tell us, what did you learn from the last UFC event?
Well, I learned that I am going to be looking to fade Gregory Rodriguez as soon as possible. I'm going to be jumping on that. Now, listen, I know that I lost with Chitty. I can face the facts. I can face the music. Never fun to lose. But it still felt like the right spot. Now, listen, Gregory Rodriguez is the kind of guy that's hittable, terrible cardio. One of his best weapons is wrestling. He can't really use it because he can't fuel those wrestling attempts over and over and over again. He's been rocked multiple times when he's been out there, so a lot of things aren't good. But if we go down memory lane a little bit here of how he got here, I mean, if you look back at Dana White Contender Series, last time he was on there, he got knocked out in the first round against Jordan Williams, who's 1-5 out of his last 1-4 out of his last 5. One of his losses are to the very own Mickey Gall, for God's sake. Lost to him as well, too. Then he was kicked over to LFA for a while. Came back over. He beat Dusko. Awesome. He beat him. But the next 4 really present a lot of kind of iffy things that took place. He fought June Young Park, which was a fight in the second round where it was almost like June Young Park was tired from punching him in the face too much. He ended up, same thing, death gassing like Chitty did. Chitty went out there. Chitty looked like he was going to finish the job. Didn't finish it. Same thing with June Young Park. He ended up getting tired, getting knocked out in that second round. After that, he lost to Armin Petrosian, and then he fought the meme known as Julian Marquez, which Marquez is, I mean, he's a guy that, I mean, he's on a podcast with a porn star. He said he doesn't even care about the sport. So this isn't really a win to hang your hat on. And then he got beat by, and then he ended up beating Chitty. But the part of this is yes, he's got durability. He's got heart. I mean, give him the credit where it's due. But he's the kind of guy that really, like, if it wasn't for that certain situation that took place, I think he could be in a world 1-3 over the last 4 instead of 3-1. So this is a guy that definitely you're going to look to fade. He fights at UFC 283 against Brad Tavares. I think this is a good spot. I haven't looked at any lines on it. I don't think there's a line out yet, but I think it's a spot that's worth it. You've got Tavares, who's going to be having good cardio. He's going to push forward. There's a lot of things that he's going to be doing. He's going to be well-rounded. He's not going to death gas. So I think it's a spot you want to take a look at. And listen, I was close, but, we'll get him next time.
Wow, one of the biggest rivalries in sports, Kyle Anthony versus Gregory Rodriguez. I didn't see this coming. This is great. I love it. Yeah, the man's artery was actually coming out of his
Oh
forehead. Like, if you can actually see it. Uh, Shout out to Gregory Rodriguez. I saw on social media he got his stitches taken out. Still doesn't look 100%. I'm surprised he's got another fight. What did I learn? I'll go next. I learned Javid Basharat just continues to evolve and get better. I thought this was going to be his toughest test. And in the first round, Tony Gravely was landing good shots, but once Basharat figured out the timing, he looked great. He got cut. I thought it was by a knee, but it turns out it was an incidental headbutt. So even the damage that Basharat took was just a headbutt. He showed incredible scrambling ability. He reversed pretty much all of Tony Gravely's takedown and ended up outstriking Gravely 80-39. He had 2.5 more minutes of control. And Gravely was only 2 of 13 on takedowns. I love his fight IQ. You can just see him. You can see his wheels grinding as the fight goes on. He figures out the timing. He uses his kicks beautifully. He said after the fight, I love this. He said after the fight he was really excited to fight Gravely because he was a D1 wrestler and he really wanted to show off that he could wrestle. He just said, there's not a lot of good wrestlers in this division. I think I can take them. So he was happy to show off that wrestling ability. My only concern with him, I don't know if he's got KO power when he starts fighting these higher level guys. I mean, he's at this point, he's a little bit of a points fighter. He had knockouts before UFC, but this is the best in the world. I don't know if he's got the power to really rock guys. His 2 UFC fights have gone the distance, but from a betting perspective, this looks like a really clear over better. You can look at his next couple fights to probably go the distance. And if you're a parlay better, you can take Basharat's fights to start round 2. I think he's really smart. He always keeps himself out of danger. His record reflects that. I just don't know if he's got the finishing ability from KO. Submissions, maybe, but as soon as he starts fighting more high-level UFC opponents, I just don't think there's a lot of finishing ability there. But I love watching him. He's gotten better each and every fight, and not just by a little bit. I think he's gotten better quite a bit. So I'm excited to see. And he's a great interview after the fight. So I am officially a Basharat fan, and now we got his brother in the UFC. So those two should be pretty fun to follow in the future. Matt, coming to you. What did you learn from the last UFC event?
Yeah, so in the last UFC event, I definitely learned some things, had to lick some wounds. I'm definitely with Kyle on Rodriguez. Thought Chitty had that one. That was one of my plays as well. Lost that. And then had Pat Sabatini, who got just jawed with a front kick in the first 40 seconds. So safe to say I had some beers after that. But what I learned had to do with Song Yadong. You know, I like Song Yadong a lot. I've watched him progress fight after fight since that loss with Kyler Phillips. And I felt like he worked on a lot of things. You know, when watching him, he looked very quick, compact. He scrambled well on top of that. You know, Corey Sandhagen isn't the best wrestler in the world, but I still liked what I saw with Song. He kept that fight very close. If it wasn't for that cut where, you know, the fight before they let the cut go, so why didn't they just let this one go? I don't know. But whatever. But with some upcoming matchups with Song Yadong, I think there's some interesting ones because he's still number 9 within the division. You know, you got Cheeto at 5. You got Rob Font at number 6. I think that would be a very interesting matchup, a matchup where I might even favor Song. I'd love to see the odds on that. You know, you got Dominic Cruz, you got Pedro Munoz. So going forward, I think Song Yadong is an interesting choice against some of these contenders within that division. So that's really my takeaway from the last fight. It's the progression of Song Yadong. He's 24 years old, and there's a lot of really good fights with him to be made within that division once again.
Good stuff. Yeah, and you got to believe after a loss, he's going to get a little bit of a drop down in competition for his next fight. So really good learning opportunity for him against Sandhagen. So next up, guys, we're going to go with fights that we're excited to watch or fights that we are interested in. These can be fights that we're excited to bet on, or if there's a stylistic matchup or just something interesting, fights that we have circled. I will go first, and it's a little bit down in the prelims, but I'm going with Raoni Barcelos versus Trevin Jones. We got 2 guys that are coming in off of 2 losses, and you don't want to get to that dreaded 3rd loss in a row because then you're definitely on the cut line. I'll start with Barcelos. This would be his worst loss of the 3. He lost a really close one to Timur Valiev. He lost rounds 1 and 3, but he easily won round 2. One judge gave him a 10-8. And after that, he lost to Victor Henry as a heavy favorite. But that was predictable. That was easily a parlay buster. We actually took Henry in that one. Henry's one of these, he's been around a long time. He's kind of like Chris Curtis. He's a little bit of a journeyman, tons of experience, is peaking a little bit late in his career. And I thought he just was able to surprise Barcelos. I didn't think Barcelos looked terrible. I thought it was more of an indication of how good Henry was. And he's facing Trevin Jones. He's lost 2 in a row, as we mentioned. He's 1-2-1 in the UFC, and his biggest weakness by far is cardio. And that's one of the strengths of Barcelos. Jones goes really hard in the first round. He's searching for a finish, but then he gets tired halfway through the first round as we're starting to get into the second round. And then you just really see him start to drain. His win was a KO of Mario Batista as a flash uppercut early in the second round. Next 2 fights, they went into the third round, and he lost both of them. So I'm interested to watch this one because this is not quite loser leaves town, but we're getting there. Jones is going to be looking for a finish early, and I think Barcelos is just going to try and weather the storm, tire out Jones, and pull away late on the scorecards. One thing I would mention, this is a fantastic live betting opportunity. Wouldn't surprise me if Jones won the first round, and then as he starts to tire out, Barcelos could pull away in 2 and 3. So if you see Jones looking really good in round 1, and then he starts to get a little tired, look at firing away a live bet on Raoni Barcelos. Matt, coming to you. I'm interested in this fight as well. Talk to us about this fight that you're excited to watch.
Yeah, so the fight that I'm excited to watch is John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos. And it's a really interesting fight because it's 2 fighters that, the average UFC fan will know very little about. John Castaneda is 19-5 in his pro fighting career and is currently 2-1 within the UFC, winning his last 2. As for Daniel Santos, he is 8-2 and lost his last fight. But in watching that fight, I was impressed with his pressure, his power, his variety of strikes. So I chose this fight because I do think there's some opportunity here with the over-under, and I think it's exactly what the fans are going to want to see. Both fighters like to apply pressure. John Castaneda does shoot for some takedowns, but isn't incredibly accurate. So there's a chance that this will be one of those fights that can end up being in a phone booth. And that's exactly what Daniel Santos wants. If you go and watch his last fight back against Julio Arce, he is a very solid striker, but he did seem to just be chasing Arce all around the ring. And, Castaneda keeps distance at times. But I do think this is one of those fights that has a good chance to get in that phone booth style. And one of those guys has a good chance of getting cracked. They're both incredibly tough, have taken some tough strikes before, but both do have the power to put the lights out. And because of that, I think the under 2.5 rounds at plus 130 is definitely in play.
Kyle, you surprised me yet again. Did not expect this fight, but I love that you're going to talk about it. So please break down this fight that you're excited to watch. This is a beaut.
Listen, I got to come with different angles here, different conversations. And I know this is maybe, for me, it's the most, interesting fight. But it also, at the same token, may be one of the most uninteresting fights on the card. But there's an angle to this. It is Ilir Latifi versus Aleksei Oleinik. Now, this is a fight that they booked 3 different times, so the UFC wants to see this for some reason. But although it may be a dumpster fire, there is an angle here that I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking when you're taking a look at this fight. Now, the big part about this really is going to be is you've got 2 grapplers. You got 2 old guys here. You got Oleinik, 45. You've got Latifi, 39. So you've got some older guys here that are going to be in there scrapping. But the big question here is the wrestling. Now, you've got Latifi, who is a wrestler, who that's been his way to go. It's been his whole career. He's a wrestler. He's a grinder. Where you've got Oleinik on the other side. He's the kind of guy that's pretty good off of his back. He's had different types of chokes off of his back. He's had the Ezekiel choke off of his back. So there's a few different things that he could bring to the table in that manner. Now, with the takedown attempts coming, is that something he's going to do? Is that something that Latifi is going to be bringing? Because I don't really put him as this big-time striker, and now you've got Oleinik with his situation, with his durability. Now, over Latifi's career, he has not really faced somebody that has the prowess on the ground like Oleinik does. Now, the way that I'm kind of looking at this is that Latifi's never been submitted. He's never been submitted in his career. I think that actually is something that's going to be very interesting here. but also the fact that I think this fight actually has some legs to it. Everyone's kind of talking about this being an underspot. This is a great underspot. I don't really agree with that because, one, all these chokes, I really believe that Latifi is going to go for those takedowns. I think that he's going to do the lay and pray. I think he's going to lay at him for a little bit there. And some of these chokes that Oleinik needs to do is, really working from the bottom. He has these neck cranks, and I said the Ezekiel chokes. Those chokes, you need to have a neck. And that is definitely something that Latifi does not have. And then on the other side of it, you look at Oleinik. Now, Oleinik has no chin. We know that he has no chin, but also Latifi doesn't punch. He doesn't really punch much. He grinds you up against the fence. He holds you there. He's more of a positional kind of guy. So I kind of look at this as being very similar to Oleinik versus Spivak, which is more of a positional grappling, leaning up against the fence, two old guys kind of, drunk up against the bar. I don't really see it being this tactical kind of fight. And if you look at Oleinik over his last 5 fights, 3 of them passed a round and a half. So people are kind of going off of those past fights where there was 4 straight fights, I think it was, wherever it was 30 seconds and 40 seconds and all these things. I think there's a possibility here for a great lay and pray spot for him, even like the Rockhold versus Costa spot. I mean, those were 2 guys that had no cardio at all. The under seemed like a pretty good spot, and they kind of laid at each other and had no power. So I think this is where you're looking at the over. Is the over 1.5 is minus 130. I actually like this spot. It is not going to be pretty. It's going to be an ugly fight. It's not going to be anything that you even want to watch. But if you bet it, come back, and you'll be cashing in because I really think this over is a good spot, and I like it. So controlling for Latifi, and I think that it gets past the round and a half.
Unbelievable breakdown on the no chin versus the no neck by Kyle Anthony there. only on Inside the Distance we get.
Listen, you get everything here.
It's very, very well said. Kyle Anthony on WagerTalk.com. He's got a customer appreciation play. It's up for only $1. You can grab a 3% play for $1 over there. He's also got his usual 4% pack that is up. Matt has his UFC best bet that is up at sportsmemo.com. I've got a 5% play up at wagertalk.com. Gentlemen, we have to talk about the main event. Young men everywhere on Instagram are excited about doing this. A lot of field work has been done on Mackenzie Dern. We all know that. So let's talk about Mackenzie Dern and Xiaonan. Matt, coming to you first. Mackenzie Dern, pretty big favorite here. Looks like she's crossed over the minus 200, around minus 215 is a good average on most of the books. So how do you see this fight playing out?
So I actually really like this fight and think it's an interesting matchup. Personally, I've been reading a lot of stuff on Mackenzie Dern getting that submission in the first round or second round, anything like that. And I'm not exactly seeing that. Of course, Dern is dangerous within the submission game when she gets people on the ground. But the biggest thing is getting her opponents to the ground. She's actually one of the worst in terms of takedowns throughout the UFC. She has a 9% takedown rate. So, and when you watch Jan, she's very good at reading her opponent. She's good at keeping distance. You saw that fight with Marina Rodriguez. And I personally thought she won that fight. And when you look at Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez, they're very similar in terms of stature. They're kind of lanky. They have weird strikes. They throw in some kicks. So Jan has seen that, and she actually, in my eyes, outstruck Rodriguez when they last fought. And Rodriguez is a much better striker than Mackenzie Dern. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. I'm starting to go more and more with Jan. I'm starting to like that underdog sprinkle here. I think Mackenzie Dern is kind of overhyped, overfavored in this bout. One thing that is on my mind is that Mackenzie Dern has gone the distance before and Jan has not. Jan did seem to fade a little bit in the third round when fighting Rodriguez. But, Jan is one of the better strikers, throughout the female division. And Mackenzie Dern is not. A lot of this is going to come down to, can she get Jan to the ground? And if she can't, she might even pull guard or something like that. One bet that I did like was for the fight to start round 3. That is at minus 140. I do think it might take a second for Dern to get Jan on the ground, just because, like I said before, Jan did seem to fade in that third round. Dern may need to tire her out a little bit because, again, she's not a takedown artist of any fashion. So I do think Jan is worth that money line sprinkle here.
Kyle, takeaways from Mackenzie Dern and Xiaonan. What did the film show us?
I mean, there's definitely, we'll have some contradictory between me and Matt here, but I mean, definitely good points that he's making. Absolutely. And the first thing we got to obviously talk about is the extremely high level of jiu-jitsu that Mackenzie Dern has. I mean, there's no denying that. She's top level when it comes to that. And also, I think one of the most impressive things that she does is she chain submits people very well, meaning that when she has somebody on the ground, she works towards a Kimura, or she's working towards one of the arms, and then all of a sudden, as you're picking that apart, she's already working towards the leg or the neck, and she just smoothly and seamlessly does that, and it's very much overlooked. I mean, even when she was fighting Tecia Torres, she had the arm, it looked like it was almost going to be done, and all of a sudden she's got her back and her leg. It's just very interesting the way she does that, even against Nina Nunes. I mean, Nina Nunes, she took her time. She was patient. As soon as she had her arm, she kind of just sat there and said, all right, let me take this in, where that is just such high level where you're able to be patient and wait for the spot, and then she had getting the finish. Now, of course, the vulnerability is going to be coming from Jan, is going to be the takedowns, is going to be off of her back. That's going to be something. And to Matt's point, now the takedown ability of Dern is definitely a different part of this, where, like you said, she's 9% takedown defense rate, very bad, absolutely bad. But the one thing that she's doing is she's trying to pull guard. Now, I think the first thing that's going to help her is having the apex cage. I think the apex cage is going to help. She's kind of that bulldozer where when Dern is looking, she throws punches to pretty much just cut distance, not really, hurting her opponent. It's more cut distance, get her hands on him. And I think also the fact that she's going to be the stronger person here. Now, compared to Tecia Torres, that's tough. Tecia Torres is a tough cookie. She's got great wrestling. She's very strong. Any other female probably was getting submitted in that fight, and she was able to kind of get out of it. So I think that absolutely helps her very much. But I just think that she's going to be able to latch onto something, kind of pull her down. And I think it only takes one here. I really only think it takes one takedown, and I think Jan's in trouble. Over 5 rounds, I think there's a possibility for that. Dern doesn't have the greatest cardio, and also, like you're saying, Jan has not been in a 5-round war or a 5-round battle, so I think this opens up opportunities. So getting off the big number, I like Dern via submission here. I think she finds it one way or another, and I think she slowly, methodically finds that opening and gets the job done. So I like it there, and I think you're looking at a good price getting off the bigger number. I think it's worth it.
Can I just bring up that I'm not too impressed by the people that Mackenzie Dern has submitted in the UFC? Like, okay, Nina Nunes, all right, she's 11-7. She's not fighting for a belt anytime soon. And then Randa Marcos, losing record. Hannah Cyphers and Amanda Cooper, losing records, who you've submitted in UFC. So, I mean, they make for great highlights, but I'm not really sure what we can take away from the
I don't really, but I also don't think Jan really kind of went against that really. I mean, that's kind of what's that?
I said, we're going to get to her lack of impressive wins here in just a second. Like, she was one of hundreds that beat Angela Hill by decision. She beat Claudia Gadelha, and then she made such big mistakes against Esparza, way too over anxious.
Oh yeah,
Russian way too fast. And then, I thought her problem with Rodriguez was, she got a little cocky and she didn't finish rounds. That third round, I thought that round was anybody's, and she fell apart in the last minute, raising her hand and trying to get too cocky. So I guess I just haven't been really impressed with either of those. And I will say I do like the patience of Mackenzie Dern. I'm not high on Jan's fight IQ. I think she just leaves herself too many holes in her game and leaves herself open to attacks. Mackenzie Dern's style does kind of fit to where if Jan rushes in too fast, like we saw against Esparza, it's going down on the ground and she's in trouble. Or if she does something dumb on the feet, Dern is smart enough to attack. Dern doesn't let up. She's focused the whole time. I just don't know if the price is going to be worth it. I'm not going to have a play on this one. Should be interesting to watch, though. I'm just going to be a fan instead of a bettor on this one. So, all right, that's Mackenzie Dern and Xiaonan. Now we're going to get to our 3 segments. We got the hardest one, the Parlay Buster. This is a favorite that people are going to put in their parlays that we're a little nervous about. We're going to go over a fight that we think is going to go inside the distance or over the distance, and then we're going to talk about a play that is minus 200 or less. Kyle, you got the tough one, the Parlay Buster. It's the toughest segment of this show. You got to pick a favorite that everyone's going to put in their parlays. What do you have for us? Who are you nervous about when everyone puts them in their parlay?
All right, so the one I got here is I got Randy Brown minus 340. Now, before I even get into this, Randy Brown is a great fighter. Like, I'm not even trying to go that route with it. This is a price thing here. I mean, it's gotten so ballooned up now. It's minus 340, minus 350. Pretty crazy. So, that aside, you look now at Francisco Trinaldo, who is, he's 44. Now that starts to ring bells, right? People start going crazy about that. Hey, he's over 40. This is a big deal. Guys, definitely after 40, things start to kind of decline, their skills, all of those things. But Trinaldo is not your average 40-year-old fighter. The guy, since he's turned 40, he's 6-2. So this isn't a guy that he's hit 40 over his last 10 fights. He's getting knocked out. He's 3-7. He's very optically a tough guy to fight when judges are judging him. It's just he keeps a pace. He kind of makes it sloppy. He gets in your face. A lot of those things I think are going to make it tough. And if you look at also the fact that I really think that Brown needs to get a finish. I think it's kind of one of those things. Otherwise, it becomes a very close fight. And I think he can. It's a possibility to get this finish. But also, if you look at it, Trinaldo has 8 losses. Over those 8 losses, 5 were by decision, and the last time he was knocked out was finished was in 2017. So again, he's not your average 40-year-old fighter, which is pretty crazy, but he's not your average 40-year-old fighter. He's going to push forward. He's going to push the pace. He's going to try to get in your face. And if you look at Brown, minus 340, if you look at it, implied probability is about 77%. So in order to get any kind of value out of this, you've got to cap this well into the 80% range to make this worth anything in a parlay or putting it together. And again, the line is, and I think the line's going to keep going up. But one of the big 2 flaws that I think that he has that possibly Trinaldo can take advantage of is that Brown is not good off of his back. And there are opportunities where I think Trinaldo will be diving at legs. I don't think he's going to want to stand and bang with Randy. Randy's got the range. He's got the better striking. Definitely has all of that. And I think the pace and getting on him could be an issue. Also, the fact that Brown doesn't check leg kicks. I mean, he pretty much doesn't do it at all. And that's something where you see Trinaldo, he's throwing that to start combinations, to end combinations. He's always throwing those. So I think it starts to bring a little bit closer. And again, I really think Brown needs that finish. Otherwise, this is one of those 29, 28, probably took 2 of them. And at that point, the value's gone. Like, there is no value at minus 350 if we're talking that. So here for me, I think Brown should maybe be maybe in the 200 range. Probably somewhere around there. But like I said, just be careful because the line's getting crazy and it's starting to lose a lot of the value that was on that fighter. So be careful on Brown.
Kyle warning everybody, be careful on the price tag on Randy Brown over Francisco Trinaldo. Matt, you have the distance fight. You got to pick a fight that you think is going to go inside the distance or almost maybe over. What fight did you pick? I know which one it is, and good luck pronouncing this guy's first name. However you're going to pronounce it's going to be better than I would do. I think it starts with 7 consonants before it gets to the first vowel. Who do you like, and who do you like for your distance fight?
For my distance fight this week, I have Krzysztof Jotko versus Brendan Allen, and first off, I think this is a pretty interesting fight just all around. I was kind of surprised to see this was on the prelims. So definitely if you're someone who likes to pay attention to the prelims, I think this is a good fight to watch. But starting off with Jotko, he has gone 5-1 in his last 6 fights, and every single fight has gone to a decision. Throughout his career, he has a 71% decision rate on top of that. And his opponent, Brendan Allen, does tend to finish people more, but this is more of a stylistic matchup than anything. When you look at Jotko, for the middleweight division, he's very fast. He's in and out. He throws in combinations, and he gets away. Likes to stay to the outside of the cage, circle, touch and go. And that's, Brendan Allen is kind of one of those fighters who does like to push forward. He's a little bit slower than Jotko, that's for sure. And then in addition to that, though, Brendan Allen, when he's at his best, is when he's grappling. As of late, he has fallen in love with his striking a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. If he wrestled a little more, I'd probably be going with Brendan Allen overall in this fight. But with that being said, the matchup, again, when Brendan Allen would go for takedowns against Jotko or anything like that, Jotko is actually a very good defender of the takedown on top of that. He has an 83% takedown defense. And when that happens, I think it could potentially stay on the feet. And if it stays on the feet, I think that is the advantage to Jotko. Jotko can kind of do what he wants. He can touch and go. He can bounce in and out, and he can stay to the outside of that cage. Yes, it is in the apex, so it's going to be a little smaller, but I still think Jotko is fast enough, and he can frustrate Brendan Allen. And I don't see him being able to take him down that much. I think Jotko is good enough in takedown defense that he can keep Brendan Allen at bay and just kind of keep this match standing. And if that's exactly how this goes, I do think that this is going to go to the decision, and I'll take the over 2.5 rounds in this fight.
Good stuff from Matt Kowalis at sportsmemo.com. I have been handed the task of picking a fight that is minus 200 or less. I'm going to pick Joaquim Silva. And really, this is just so I can talk about Jesse Ronson. I am so excited to talk about fading Jesse Ronson. So Jesse and Kyle, you know exactly where I'm going with this, Matt. The look on your face, you know where I'm going too. So Jesse Ronson, so he loses twice in the PFL in 2019. He wins a fight in February of 2020 at BTC 9 Rampage. Comes to UFC in July of 2020 and knocks out Nicholas Dalby and looked great. But fails a drug test, and not just by a little bit, like pure anabolic steroid failed drug test. I mean, that dude was juicing. The hard stuff. This wasn't a cocktail. This is straight shooters. So he gets suspended 20 months. He comes back in April of 2022 against Rafa Garcia and looked so bad. He was so awful. He had no power. He had no speed. Garcia subs him in round 2. Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't get it stopped in round 1. So Ronson just got hit over and over. He's 36. I see zero upside with him. And Joaquim Silva, listen, he's not a world beater. He's gotten knocked out 2 fights in a row. One was against Haparast, who's, that's a good quality opponent. And one against Ricky Glenn, where he just rushed in way too fast and got popped. Just without the steroids, I don't think Jesse Ronson can knock him out. I think Silva's good enough on the feet to rock Ronson a little bit, and then Silva is just going to have an advantage in grappling. I think Silva's the only one in this fight who can possibly finish, and based on how bad Jesse Ronson looked off of the steroids, he's an obvious fade, especially when you're getting him at minus 200 or better. I believe he's minus 150 across most of the sports books. So, all right, let's do a little recap here. Kyle picked Randy Brown as his parlay buster. Not predicting the huge upset, but just saying this price tag at minus 340 is way too much, and be worried about putting him in your parlays. Matt, great job breaking down Jotko and Allen. Likes that fight to go over 2.5 rounds. And I will take Joaquim Silva over the roidless Jesse Ronson at minus 200 or less. It's a good price at minus 150 here, guys. Don't forget to go get Matt's picks at sportsmemo.com. He's got his best bet up right now. I have a 5% play that is up on WagerTalk.com right now. And Kyle has his 4% pack plus a bonus play separate from the 4% pack. It's only $1 for a 3% play, celebrating 365 days of really good bets. Congratulations on that, Kyle. So good luck, everyone. Let's have a great weekend. I believe we got another break coming up after this fight. So we will see everyone on the next episode of Inside the Distance.
You're a winner at WagerTalk even before the game is played with our Wager Rewards program. How does it work? Simple. Earn wager rewards on every purchase made at WagerTalk and Sports Memo. Those wager rewards can be converted into wager bucks on the first of every month. There is no additional fee to participate, and no additional details are required outside your valid WagerTalk or Sports Memo membership. On the first of each month, 5% of your wager rewards will be converted to WagerBucks, which are available to purchase on all future purchases. Doesn't it feel good to be part of a rewards program with no additional hoops?